You're listening to the Magnetic Boss Podcast, a place for spiritual entrepreneurs and visionary women. I'm Calandra, intuitive brand designer and founder of the Magnetic Boss Studio, where we cultivate magnetic brands, websites, and a social media presence for our clients. On this podcast, you'll learn how to begin cultivating your magnetic brand so you can attract dream clients with ease. Each month, we'll bring you real, raw conversations and industry guest experts to help you create your most magnetic self. Thank you for listening today. Now let's get this party started. Let's chat today about the number one thing that every entrepreneur comes up against in their business, especially these days. And that is your social media strategy. Now, if you're listening to this podcast, there is more than a good chance that you are active on social media and you are actively growing your business through social media. This is something that the Magnetic Boss Studio helps our clients with, and today I want to talk to you about how to map out your social media strategy for 2022 and some of the things to be aware of and intentional about as you're going into this year ahead of us. So as I'm recording this episode, and as you're listening to this episode, if you're listening to it live in real time, we are in the very beginning of 2022. It is now February, which is crazy to me. I don't know where January went. It happened so fast. And the energy of January to me, and from a lot of my clients, I heard this feedback, is that the energy of January felt really rushed. It felt like we were thrown into 2022 and it happened and it's here. And I don't know about you, but I didn't have a whole lot of time to plan and strategize and vision. Even though that is work that I do in my business, I didn't feel really grounded in that this year. So although I looked at my vision for the year ahead on the big scale of things, when it comes to structures and offers and the day-to-day in my calendar and the ways that I wanted to structure my calendar this year, but I didn't necessarily take the time as much as I normally would to go through my social media strategy for the studio and for my personal brand, which is really one and the same. If you've been following along for years, I have always led my business with a personal brand. If you know my business, you know me, and you know about my story, and you know how I got here and how this business was created. If you haven't heard that story, you can go back to some of the previous episodes and I share a little bit more about that. But that being said, my brand has always been led by personal branding strategy. And so what that looks like and what I teach my clients and what we help clients create is by breaking the content that you are sharing into a series of pillars. And I've taught workshops on this. You can buy the social media workshops on my website if you want lifetime access and a more in-depth deep dive on content strategy, organization, and planning. We're just going to kind of brush the surface today in this episode. But what we teach our clients is to break up your content into pillars. So these pillars include inspirational content, educational content, entertaining content, promotional content, and polarizing content. Now, what do those mean, right? You're like, okay, I got inspirational content, perfect, but what else do I have to be sharing? So your inspirational content is really going to be the content that is showing your audience what is possible. It might be sharing an inspirational quote. It might be telling a story, a client testimonial of a transformation. It might simply be something around mindset and maybe the hurdles that you have overcome in your own experience. There's a lot that could go into each of these content pillars, but this is where you start to map out what your core topics are for your particular brand. So we have inspirational, then we have educational. This one should be pretty easy for you because you are the expert in your business. You are the expert in whatever it is, whatever industry that you are leading in, and you're the expert in the transformation that you provide. So for example, educational content for Magnetic Boss Studio is surrounded with content around branding, around website design, and around social media strategy. Those are our 3 core educational topics. And within those, there are lots of things that we could cover and talk about. But at the end of the day, we are always going back to teaching around branding, teaching around website design, teaching around social media, right? That's what this podcast is. This particular podcast episode is an educational piece of content that I'm going to be sharing on social media, and it's going to be providing value to my audience, right? So that one's pretty straightforward, and you should have quite a few ideas here. But what you want to keep in mind is that your educational content should be directly related to your offers, because your social media strategy should be leading people to a sale, right? So we have your educational, then we have your entertaining content. Now this content is where you get to have a little bit of fun. You get to share your personality. This is where your brand personality really comes through. It's how you're going to be building that know, like, and trust with your audience. For my business, for example, I often share really cute pictures of my dogs or a quick video clip of my kid doing something funny because I live that mom entrepreneur lifestyle, right? So I have these areas of relatability for my audience because most of my clients tend to be dog lovers. They tend to be moms. They tend to be ambitious women who drink a lot of coffee, right? Those are all some of the things in my personal branding that you'll see time and time again when I'm sharing more entertaining content, right? So think of Instagram stories, think of Instagram reels, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how you're delivering this content in just a few minutes. So you have your entertaining content. This part gets to be fun. This is where you don't have to be so serious and strategic, and you allow yourself to just enjoy social media the way that social media is intended to be used in the first place. Okay, so have fun with that one. And then we have, of course, and I really don't want you to overlook this or forget this or shy away from creating this type of content, but the next type of content that you should be creating in your business is promotional content. Now, this means that you are leading somebody to a sale or to an opt-in directly. There's a very clear call to action in this content that is leading people to the link in your bio or to the direct website link that you are sharing with them. So what I want to remind you of here is that it is so important and it is of service to your audience for you to be selling on a regular basis. If you don't do this, people are not going to see you as an expert. Plain and simple. They are not going to turn to you when they have a problem that they need solved in whatever area of expertise it is that you have, right? So for example, if I were just to share inspirational and entertaining content all of the time in my business, and I never talked about my offers, and I never talked about client testimonials, and I never told people that I was having promotions, people quite simply would not know that they could hire me to design their brand and their website and help them with their social media, right? People wouldn't even know that that was an option in the first place. And without that continuous repetition, they're probably going to forget. So even if you are sharing promotion, let's say once a month, chances are they're, one, not going to see that piece of content because we have an algorithm that we are working with on social media. And two, they're probably going to forget because we need to see things over and over and over again in order to build that subconscious recognition. Okay, so I am on my soapbox on this one because I want you to be building your business. I want you to be growing your business with social media, and you simply cannot do that if you are not promoting your business on social media. And this doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pay for ads or do any slimy, sleazy stuff on the internet. You really just have to be opening up that opportunity and presenting it to the people in your audience. Okay, so those are your core content pillars, and then the one additional content pillar that I really want to just quickly touch on is polarizing content, and this is the type of content where you are taking a strong point of view in your industry or in something that you're passionate about, and you're explaining to people why you have that point of view. So one example of this might be as a designer, I could have the strong point of view that DIY templates are a waste of time and money, right? Now, I don't necessarily believe this. I will say that because I truly believe that if you are resourceful enough and you're dedicated enough in your business to go the DIY route and to try to piece together, let's say, for example, your website by yourself, it absolutely can be done. But I don't necessarily think that it should be done because a lot of people will waste a ton of time, money, and energy and most likely delay their growth because they'll be stuck spinning their wheels in this DIY process for a really long time, right? So although I do offer DIY templates and I do help people with that, I don't promote that as the strong point of view that you should DIY everything, right? I don't tell people, well, just do it yourself because you'll save a ton of money. No, I believe in investing in getting support in these areas that are not your expertise. So that is one strong point of view. That is just an example. And you could pick anything in your business that you feel really passionate about, that you find yourself getting a little ranty about, because this is what is going to help you differentiate the people in your audience that are for you and the people in your audience that are not for you. And they may have somebody else out there that is a better fit for them. So again, this is doing your audience a service by showing up in your strong point of view, by creating polarizing content that helps people understand who you are, what you believe in, what your values are, and so on. So those are the content pillars that I want you to be thinking about this year for 2022 in your content strategy, in your social media strategy. We want to be touching on each of these pillars of content on a regular basis. And so the next thing that we move into here that I want to have a conversation around is frequency. And you've probably heard this on one of these podcast episodes before. If you've attended any of my workshops or purchased any of my workshops, you will hear me get on my soapbox about this in particular, because I strongly believe that you do not have to be on social media every single day, posting multiple times a day in order for your business to grow. It is just not how that works. I absolutely do not want you getting hung up on the idea that social media has to be a ton of work or it has to be really hard. Because if you get in that mindset, what I find happens is that a lot of people just won't post on social media at all because they feel like they don't have it all together yet, or they haven't perfected their strategy yet, or they just don't have the time to do it, right? So I want to have a conversation around frequency when it comes to your social media strategy. Your frequency is how often you are posting on social media. So this could be posting 5 times a week. It could be posting 3 times a week. It could mean posting on your feed versus your stories versus Instagram Reels. We really will talk about deliverables in just a few minutes, but I want you to be thinking about the time blocks that you have in your day-to-day, in your business, that are going to allow you to show up on social media and to show up consistently. Now, this is really what is important. Consistency is so much more important for your audience than frequency. You could be showing up once a month consistently for your audience, and that would be okay. And the reason that that would be okay is because you are building something that your audience can rely on. So for example, this year we decided to dial back the frequency of podcast episodes. I was sharing podcast episodes once a week, and I was finding that I was having a really hard time staying consistent with that because of my life and the things that I do in my business and so many other factors. So what we did is we changed the frequency so that I could feel really confident in recording high value episodes for you and recording them on time and not feeling super scattered and rushed around this podcast. And because that shifted the energy around the podcast for me, I feel really excited to show up for you here in this space. And as a listener, as a subscriber to the podcast, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do if you're loving this episode. you can expect the podcast to come out every other week, right? And so when you get used to receiving that content on a regular basis, it becomes part of your personal schedule. I know for me, I am a podcast listener. I love listening to podcasts, but I'm also very selective with my time and energy. And so the podcasts that I do listen to, I know how often their episodes are coming out, and I look forward to those episodes being released on a set schedule. Now, podcasting is a little bit different than social media because it is evergreen content. There is a different algorithm, of course, because if you're subscribed, you're going to get the notifications. Whereas on Instagram, if you're following me, you may or may not see my content unless you're turning the notifications on for my content. So keeping that in mind, we want to understand that the more consistent you are on social media, the better you are setting your audience up for success when it comes to following and engaging with your content. So whatever your frequency is, there is no right or wrong answer here. Find what works for you, but try to stick with that for a period of time. Now, that isn't to say that we don't have seasons in our business. We all absolutely have times in our life where social media gets pushed to the back burner and we maybe aren't posting on our regular, consistent schedule. That has happened to me many, many times. This summer, for example, I took quite a bit of time off of social media because of some personal life events that came up that were quite unexpected, and they set me back in my creative process, and I wasn't able to create content at the level that I normally would create. And so I want to say a month, almost 2 months off of posting on social media altogether. I didn't put any pressure around that. But now we are back to the regular schedule where I'm posting typically 3 times a week, sometimes more than that, but in most cases I'm posting Mondays and Wednesdays and Fridays. And that is a really good schedule for me from a creative perspective. I'm able to sit down and batch that content. So what I want you to be thinking about for 2022 is to set your baseline. If you are creating content, what is the bare minimum when it comes to your frequency? Do you want to be posting once a week? Do you want to be posting once a month? Do you want to be posting 3 times a week, 5 times a week, every single day? Sometimes that works for people. So decide what works for you as an individual, as the business owner. And if you're outsourcing this, you may be able to increase your frequency, right? I have clients that have come on in the last month that wanted to increase their frequency, and they just needed that accountability to be able to create that content 5 days a week, right? So just understand the structure of your business, the structure of your calendar, and how it is going to best work for you, and play around with this. Find something that works. Trial and error is one of my favorite things about being a business owner, because you get to set the tone and you get to decide, hey, I don't really like this anymore. I'm going to change it, right? So just allow yourself to have flexibility, but do be aware that the more frequent and consistent you are, the better. Okay, and now the last thing that I wanted to touch on when it comes to your 2022 social media strategy is, how are you delivering content? Now, this is a touchy subject because social media is quite literally changing every single day, and the features of social media are changing every single day. And on top of that, the algorithm seems to be changing pretty much every single day. So this is something that will have to adapt in your business as things change on social media. But what I want you to be thinking about here when it comes to how you're delivering content is, first and foremost, which platforms are you using? Now, I don't want you to get in the mindset here where you think that you have to be on every single social media platform out there, right? It is not expected of you to be on Facebook and TikTok and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter, and I'm running out of breath because there's so many that I could list off right now. It is not up to you to be on every single platform in your business. Now, if you are able to outsource, if you have team and you feel comfortable and confident in expanding your platform reach, awesome, add another platform on. But I really want you to pulse check here and ask yourself, does it make sense for me to be on 5 different platforms? chances are the answer is probably no. No, it does not make sense for you to be living on social media 24/7. So what I encourage you to do is to pick 1 to 2 platforms this year that you are going to be laser focused on. 1 to 2 platforms that you know with your frequency that you have set for yourself that you're going to be able to show up for every single month for the rest of the year. Now, of course, it's totally fine to dabble in other platforms to check them out as they are released. I know last year, we had Clubhouse released and everybody jumped over onto Clubhouse to see what that was all about. And I think ultimately a lot of people decided it wasn't the platform for them. So of course, play around with it. See what works best for you. See which platform you enjoy the most, and then pick your core platforms from there. Then, once you have decided which platforms you're going to be consistently sharing content on, I want you to be thinking about the different ways that you can deliver content within that one platform. So I'm going to use Facebook and Instagram as an example because those are the 2 platforms that I use for the studio consistently. I have certainly tried other platforms in the past, and I keep coming back. I keep coming back to Facebook and Instagram, and that is because, 1, it feels comfortable for me. I like these platforms. I spend time on these platforms as a consumer. And 2, my audience, my ideal clients, my dream clients are spending time on these platforms as well, right? I don't have an audience necessarily on TikTok. Sure, I probably do have people over on TikTok that would consume my content and it would be great, but that is not a priority for my business, right? So I've made that decision. I love TikTok. I like consuming content on TikTok, but I don't want to be creating TikTok content in the season of my business. That may change in the future, right? So speaking to Facebook and Instagram specifically, within each of these platforms, there are a lot of different ways to create content. And again, the features are constantly changing. The algorithm is constantly changing. So on Facebook, the type of content that I prioritize when it comes to creation is feed content for my personal page and my business page. And we could go into the strategy behind this a little bit. If you have questions, you can pop them inside the Magnetic Boss Collective, our Facebook group. But the reason that I do both of these platforms, I post to both of these feeds, is because your business page at this point in time is really a pay-to-play platform. Facebook wants you to pay for ads for your content to be seen, and I get so much more traction on my personal page because I am building relationships with people on my personal Facebook account as if I were building a business account, right? That is the intention for my social media, for my Facebook page. I don't use social media like most people. When I look back on my memories in Facebook and I see my posts from when I was in college talking about making ramen noodles and getting a flat tire and being really upset about it, I cringe because I don't use social media in that way anymore. I use social media as a tool to build relationships and credibility for my business, right? So when I'm posting to my personal feed, I am always asking myself, how does this support my audience? How is this positioning my business as the go-to resource for branding and design? Every single time. Now, of course, I throw in pictures of my kid and I make some more personal posts about what's going on in my life. And I use my personal Facebook page similarly to how I would if I didn't have a business. However, I make sure that my content pillars are still getting shared on that platform. So I'm sharing to the feed on Facebook. I am consistently, although not perfectly, sharing to my Facebook stories on my personal account because, again, that is getting more traction than my business page at this point in time. I am posting in Facebook groups that I am a member of, and I am leading a Facebook group on Facebook, right? The Magnetic Bus Collective, I mentioned that already in this episode. It is a free community space for spiritual entrepreneurs to build connections and community and network, and really just a place for you to be growing your business as well. So those are really the primary functions on Facebook that I am using on a consistent basis. Now over on Instagram, it's a little bit different. I mentioned this already, but on Instagram, I am posting 3 times a week to the feed most of the time, right? You'll see me posting on my feed Monday, Wednesday, and Friday pretty consistently. You'll see me posting on Instagram in my stories almost every single day. I would say every single day. Now, my stories, I am very intentional about as well, right? Because I know that in stories, that is the place to be building the closer connection with your audience. The people that watch your stories, let me just say, those are your people. If somebody is tuning into your Instagram stories every day or almost every single day, those people give a shit about you, right? They care about your business. They have interest in what you have going on for whatever reason. So in your stories, you really want to be mindful of the type of content you are sharing and how you are sharing that content. So in my stories, I tend to share a lot of behind the scenes of what I'm doing throughout the day. I'm also sharing some polls and icebreakers with my audience where we are having conversations and I'm asking them questions. And then I'm also sharing value content. I am resharing other people's posts. I am sharing reels. I am promoting in my stories every once in a while. So there is quite a variety within that one function of Instagram where I'm creating content that is different than my feed posts. So just keep in mind that whatever platform you're using, you will likely be creating multiple types of content within that platform. And then the last feature that I use most consistently on Instagram is, of course, Reels, because Instagram Reels right now are the most consumed type of content on Instagram. The platform is pushing Reels like no tomorrow, and it's really important to be posting Instagram Reels right now, if that is a platform that you are utilizing. So this year for 2022, one of my personal goals is to post 1 reel a week at a minimum. And that allows me to really tap into that entertaining type content. I get to play around with reels. I'm not an expert in creating reels. I don't do fancy transitions or anything like that yet. But I have fun with it and I allow myself to play with that content, because I am finding that there is such a reward in utilizing that content. I have seen the engagement skyrocket on my account because of Reels, right? They're getting a ton of new views. They're allowing me to gain followers like crazy, and pairing that with the Instagram engagement that I have my Instagram engagement specialist doing, there has been a ton of growth on Instagram. So as far as platforms go, I know that my priority this year is Instagram. And then I take that same content and I put it over on Facebook, because I have people on Facebook that aren't on Instagram, or they spend more time on Facebook than Instagram. So really just being mindful of where I'm spending my time and energy and how to repurpose that content so I'm working smarter and not harder. Okay, so that is the final thing that I want you to be thinking about this year is, how are you delivering content? So let's do a quick recap. We talked about in this episode the content pillars, the types of content that you should be sharing on social media this year. Starting to think about the individual topics for each of these content pillars is going to help you in your content strategy and organizing this in a way that is sustainable for you. If you want to deep dive on this and you want to see how I do this for my clients in real time, there is a content planning and organization workshop that you can get access to on my website. And it's really going to give you a ton of great resources for how to do this. So you want to know what your content pillars are. You want to be thinking about the frequency that you will be posting. And you want to be thinking about how you're delivering content within each platform that you're utilizing. So those are the 3 things that you want to be allowing yourself to think about for your 2022 social media strategy. So take some time with this, grab a notebook, get messy with it, allow yourself to try things and switch things up, find what works best for you. And if you're needing help or support with this, you can post inside of the collective on Facebook. I'll link that in the show notes. And we do have limited spots open for high-level entrepreneurs this year, 6+ figure entrepreneurs that are wanting to outsource social media in their business. Our studio, Magnetic Boss Studio, provides social media management for spiritual entrepreneurs. We have 3 different packages that you can choose from, and we base those packages off of the frequency that you're posting and also some of the features that you might be using. Our higher packages include Instagram Reels and story management, and we have limited spots open for those this year. So if you have any interest in that, the link will be in the show notes for the application form. And we will be sharing a little bit more about that as the year kind of goes along and as we have new spots opening up. But if you have questions, you can always send me a DM on Instagram. Okay, I hope this episode helped you, and I would love to hear your biggest takeaways. You can tag me on social media or pop inside the Facebook group. Until next time. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe wherever you are listening so you don't miss a thing. Your iTunes reviews help the show impact more magnetic bosses just like you. If you leave a review or listen to this episode, share the episode on Instagram and tag @calandra.martin on Instagram so I can thank you personally. If you're craving community and connection with like-minded entrepreneurs, join us inside the Magnetic Boss Collective on Facebook, where you can build relationships and share your business too. Until next time, Magnetic Boss.